we're going to get started. My name is Mick. I'm a poet and I curate the series. I'm joining today from Toronto, also known as Toronto, land that belongs to many Indigenous nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, the Wendat First Nations, and so many others. And September 30th, which is coming up in 6 days, is National Day of Truth and Reconciliation in Canada. And leading up to this day, there's a local poet and friend of mine, Leah CL, who is running a sprint fundraiser for Toronto Indigenous harm reduction. And they've organized it so all donations up to $10,000 will be matched dollar for dollar. So this is a really great fundraiser to be donating to in this time. And I'm going to drop the link to that in the chat right now. And also feel free, it's a GoFundMe, so there's space for comments. And as a poet's organizing this one, it would be awesome to just note that you heard about it through this reading series. And now welcome to Cross-Pollinations. This is a curatorial research platform that explores relationships between poetry and healthcare. And we're funded by the League of Canadian Poets, the Health Arts Research Centre, and the Canadian Association for Health Humanities. Tonight, I am so beyond thrilled to be joined by artist Finnegan Shannon and speech-language pathologist Laura Davidson for Access as a Place, an evening of sharing and discussion around disability and the interdisciplinary. The focus on access in both Finnegan and Laura's practices inspire, incite, and imagine ways of being and being in community that are so necessary, so needed, especially right now, to create engaging and connective places for disabled people. There's so much care in Finnegan's creative work, and there is so much creativity in Laura's care work. Both their practices urge us to listen, and to listen to ourselves, to our bodies, and to each other. We'll first hear tonight from Finnegan, then Laura, and conclude with a Q&A. So as I said, drop those questions in the chat and we'll get through as many as we can. And now it is my total honor to introduce tonight's featured artist, Finnegan Shannon. Tonight is actually Finnegan's first poetry reading. A lot of their work is playing at the intersection between disciplines and is creating physical works out of words or that include words, and I am such a huge fan of their work. Finnegan is an artist experimenting with forms of access. They intervene in ableist structures with humor, earnestness, and rage. Some of their recent work includes alt text as poetry, a collaboration with Bojana Coklyat that explores the expressive potential of image description. Do You Want Us Here or Not, a series of benches and cushions designed for exhibition spaces. And Don't Mind If I Do, a conveyor-belt-centered exhibition that prioritizes rest and play. They've done projects with MUDAM Luxembourg, the Queen's Museum, moCa Cleveland, the Highline, MMK Frankfurt, MCA Denver, and Nook Gallery. Their work has been supported by a Wynn Newhouse Award, an Eyebeam Fellowship, a Disability Futures Fellowship, a United States Artist Fellowship, and grants from Art Matters Foundation, Canada Council for the Arts, and the Disability Visibility Project. Their work has been written about in Art in America, Bomb Magazine, The Believer, and Out Magazine. Please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Finnegan Shannon.
Hi, everyone. I am so happy to be here. I feel like I love poets and love poetry, and it feels really special to get to do a poetry reading. So yeah, I'm gonna read a couple of different things. I'm not exactly sure about the timing, so we'll kind of feel it out together. But the first thing that I want to read for you is called Disabled Artist Autoresponder Poem. Subject line, away. Subject line, slow response time. Subject line, thank you for your message. Subject line, thank you for writing. Subject line, slow to respond. Subject line, slowness spring. Hello, waving hand emoji. Friends, colleagues, and bill collectors. Hello, hi there, hello. Thank you so much for writing. Thank you for your message. Thank you for reaching out. Thanks for emailing me and reaching out. I am trying to live, rest, and heal. I will be offline until the end of March, writing and intentionally being on the land that I am visiting. I am currently gardening and surfing. I am practicing living more slowly. I am not actively monitoring messages as I am recovering from a recent hospitalization. I am currently at limited capacity due to personal health concerns. I am in and out of the email space this spring. My response time is slow. I'm changing my relationship to email. Due to the fluctuating nature of my disability, it may take longer for me to respond to your email. Unless we have prearranged correspondence, please expect delays. I will reply when I can. I am currently slow to answer emails because of life and living. I'll be checking email less frequently and maybe responding more slowly. I will respond when I am able. Please give me at least 5 to 10 days to respond to your email. If I am not working on a current project with you, do not request free labor, advice, and information from me. If you need me urgently, feel free to call, text, WhatsApp me at phone number. If this is a new request from my studio, please direct all inquiries to studio email. If this is an art-related request, feel free to contact gallery email. If we are friends, please text me. I encourage you to message me more than once if I miss your message the first time. For anything related to the book project, please contact collaborator email. Call/text me for anything urgent. If your message is urgent, please feel free to send me a text message. As a wise friend has said, just remember there are no art emergencies. Let us move together in slowness. I appreciate your patience and understanding. Thank you for your patience if extended time is needed. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your understanding during this time. Happy spring with care, ease, rest, and slowness. See you on the flip side. Thank you. Thank you. I'll read just a little short thing about that piece. This poem is an homage to the email autoresponders of disabled friends and colleagues. It is a collage of, quote, away messages I've collected over the past 3 years. I started collecting these emails because, to me, they are an ad hoc form of disability culture and a stopgap measure for the dissonance between capitalist work time and a disabled body-mind time. I think of them as part of a classic genre of disability world making, which is repurposing an existing structure or technology towards our needs. I think disabled people know deeply that absence and presence are not a clear-cut dichotomy the way non-disabled people make them out to be. And I love that like away message can feel so connective. Thank you to Lucasa, Yo-Yo, Carolyn, Jerome, Taranay, Emily, and Alice for your beautiful and clear messages, continuing to learn about the blur of presence and absence from you. And the next thing that I'm going to read is also a found text poem. This is a poem made out of advertising copy for pain relief products. It's called Pain Relief Advertising Poem. Activates and stimulates specific muscle groups. Alleviates lower back pain and stiffness. Alleviates pressure points. Allows air to circulate so you stay cool. Allows complete relaxation without any exertion. Applies gentle pressure. Auto-modulates pulse technology. Blocks pain signals to the brain. Boosts exercise performance by enhancing range of motion. Boosts the impact of invasive pain relief. Calms inflammation in muscles, joints, and skin. Contains soft viscoelastic gel. Contains special cushioning layers of soft, shock-absorbing EVA material. Decompresses and stretches your back. Delivers deep penetrating, full spectrum, or targeted light therapy. Delivers therapeutic heat and vibration massage. Eases back and leg discomfort. Eases back and leg discomfort caused by sitting for long periods. Eases cervical tension. Eases discomfort caused by arthritis, tendinitis, sprains, and neuropathy. Eases pain. Eases pain and stiffness in the lower back. Emits far infrared rays. Employs massage nodes and vibration. Employs vibration massage. Encourages circulation and muscle stimulation. Enhances blood circulation. Enhances foot comfort. Features the latest technology and materials, completely redesigned and updated. Holds for storage and travel. Generates deep piston-like percussions. Generates soothing heat. Helps enhance circulation and ease soreness. Helps inhibit odor and stain-causing bacteria, mold, and mildew. Helps provide therapeutic pain relief. Helps relieve pain and stiffness. Helps restore the healthy curvature of the spine. Helps soothe tired legs and achy feet. Holds your ankles securely. Improves blood flow. Improves circulation. Improves flexibility. Improves muscle strength. Improves skin tone and texture. Increases core strength. Inflates and deflates to loosen tense muscles. Inflates to your preferred level of firmness. Kneads out tension. Kneads out tension through the upper, middle, and lower back. Loosens knots. Loosens muscles. Loosens stiff muscles. Makes your hands feel instantly better. Massages away knots. Melts away pain. Never loses its shape. Offers proven pain relief. Offers 7 massage nodes on each foot. Pampers sore feet and calves. Penetrates beneath the skin to increase blood circulation. Penetrates deeper into tissue. Prevents injury by decreasing wear and tear on sensitive joints. Promotes blood circulation to help ease soreness. Promotes good posture as well as relieves pain in the back and shoulders. Promotes proper pelvic posture. Provides a relaxing stretch. Provides adjustable levels of massage. Provides consistent heat. Provides customized treatment sessions. Provides drug-free pain relief. Provides gentle vibration to help massage away pain. Provides optimal support. Provides shock absorption with each step. Provides superior comfort and ease. Provides the most effective massage. Ranks as the most comfortable unit tested due to its soft material. Recycles the downward force as propulsive energy. Reduces pain. Reduces painful inflammation by up to 37%. Reduces swelling. Relaxes muscles. Relieves disc and nerve root pressure. Relieves foot fatigue. Relieves neck stress and tension. Relieves point of contact pressure. Repairs damaged tissue. Rotates forward or backward. Softens skin. Soothes sore muscles. Soothes, warms. Speeds recovery. Submerges legs well above the ankle. Targets any area of the body. Targets not only the palm, but individually treats fingers. Targets stubborn knots on hard-to-reach areas. Targets the soles. Uses air compression and heat to help ease pain in the hands and fingers. Uses an approach widely embraced by physical therapists and medical professionals. Uses heat, vibration, and air compression. Vanquishes tension with 7 vibration settings. Warms the soles to promote relaxation, circulation, and healing. Works to relieve muscle strain. And that poem was originally used as part of an installation called I Want to Believe. That was, for me, partially about kind of like the beauty of the promises of pain relief devices, while also knowing that that's a sales tactic. And, but yeah, some of those things sound so good. Complete relaxation without any exertion. And lastly, I want to share from a collaborative project that was a sort of offshoot of Alt Texas Poetry with Bojana Coklyat and also Olivia Dreisinger, called Alt Text Selfies. It's a collection and celebration of self-descriptions. We did an open call. There are about 100 selfies on our website, and we also made a small chapbook. I think I'll read maybe one or two selfies that are gathered here. This one is by Neve. Neve holds themselves up out of their wheelchair in a tricep scapular power rise. They have brown skin, a flirty gap tooth, Josie and the Pussycats' flippy, short, strawberry red hair, a foppish dark brown mustache, and a black t-shirt with the shoulders cut, which reads, "I love being trans." This one is by Josephine Sales. In a service elevator between two X marks on the floor, a person is seated in a bright orange power wheelchair, waving a hand caught in blurred motion. I'll read one more. This one is by Emily Gossio. I am standing in the middle of a grassy field in Scotland. It is almost nighttime. There are wispy clouds in the sky. A gray brick train station is behind me in the distance. I have long brown hair that is blowing in the wind and over my face. It is chilly and the air smells like wet dirt. My eyes are half closed and my lips are partially open, like I'm about to say something. I'm wearing a heavy denim coat, a blue skirt with white flowers on it, and black Doc Martens. My legs are covered in goosebumps, and I am tired from the long journey to Glasgow. In my left hand, I am holding on to my guide dog London's leash. She is a golden Labrador retriever. She's standing next to me and looking at the camera. Her ears are alert and perky. The flash from the camera is reflecting in her eyes. Yeah, and lots more selfies available online. So I'll drop the link in the chat, but I think I'll pause there and hand it over to Laura.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Finnegan, for that reading. I am so deeply moved by the way your work reorientates words and forms and just makes them bigger and better. And that was absolutely such a joy and honor to get to listen to you read. And I can't wait to hear more of your reflections about your work after Laura's talk. And now it is my absolute thrill, joy to introduce Laura Davidson, our next guest. Laura is a registered speech language pathologist based in Toronto. She holds a Master of Health Science in Speech Language Pathology from the University of Toronto and currently works at Surrey Place, a nonprofit organization providing interdisciplinary, community-based support to children and adults with autism and intellectual disabilities. Laura primarily works with adults and is part of several specialized teams, including the Transitional Age Services Team, the Augmentative Communication and Writing Aids Clinic, and the Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder Diagnostic Team. Her work focuses on supporting clients and caregivers in assessing and using assistive communication devices, adapting environments to reduce communication barriers, and fostering connection through caregiver coaching and personalized functional communication strategies. Laura is particularly interested in augmentative and alternative communication and is deeply committed to neurodiversity affirming care practices that center the needs and autonomy of the individuals she supports. Please join me in welcoming Laura Davidson.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Mick, for that lovely introduction and for inviting me to speak today. I'm really incredibly grateful for the opportunity to be here, especially alongside Finnegan. Finnegan, thank you so much for sharing that reading with us. I think that was really powerful. And I'm super honored to be able to witness your first poetry reading and to be able to find a small pocket where our work kind of intersects and to explore the idea of access as a place and how it relates to communication in the realm of speech pathology. So I'll start with kind of a quick overview of what I do as an SLP and the clients I support. So as mentioned, I work at Surrey Place and I'm part of a few teams, but the two most relevant, I think, to today's talk are the Augmentative Communication and Writing Aids Clinic and the Transitional Age Services team. So in the AAC clinic, and AAC stands for Augmentative and Alternative Communication, we support clients in accessing high-tech speech generating devices, so things like iPads or tablets that have picture-based or text-based communication software that's meant to sort of augment or support a client's communication in a number of ways. And on the transitional age services team, I work with youth ages 16 to 25, providing assessment and consultation during a period of kind of major change or transition as clients move from a child and youth model of funding and services to an adult model. And all of my clients have at least one diagnosis of an intellectual or developmental disability. I would say majority of my clients are on the autism spectrum, but there really is a range of both visible and invisible disabilities. And while support needs vary for clients, I would say most of the clients I work with have high support needs. Meaning that they kind of rely on caregivers to sort of support them through their activities of daily living. Um, and around 85%, if not more, of my clients are non-speaking or have limited access to verbal communication. And today I figured I'd focus my talk on supporting communication and reducing access barriers for those non-speaking clients. Because I think it brings up a really interesting and important question in the realm of access, and it's one that I have to ask myself constantly when working with clients is how I can support their communication needs when they don't have access to verbal language in the way that many of us do. And it's much harder for them to explicitly communicate their needs or advocate for themselves. And that sort of brings us to the assessment process, which is often the first window into what access can look like for each client. And in a typical communication assessment, I basically look at how the client communicates. Are they using non-symbolic forms of communication like gestures, body language, eye gaze, vocalizations? Do they use these intentionally? Are they using or can we help them learn to use symbolic forms of communication like pictures or signs, even maybe a few words? I also will consider why they're communicating, for what reasons, what's important to them, what are they motivated to communicate about? And finally, why are communication breakdowns happening? Where are they occurring? And where are client needs not being met or understood? So essentially, the goal is to explore what communication is already happening with clients and how we can build from there. And while, I work in a clinical setting that really values evidence-based practice and tools and standardized assessments, this model of care is not really accessible to the clients I work with. These tools are not really neurodiversity affirming. They're not normed for the population I work with, and they don't often really reflect their communication abilities accurately. So my assessment approach needs to really be strength-based, flexible. It needs to be individualized to each client, and honestly, a bit more holistic. And I've really discovered, in my time working as an SLP, that the strongest tools I rely on the most are not clinical at all. It's really, those soft skills like listening, observing, a bit of intuition at times, just being present with the client and the caregivers and following their lead because ultimately they're the experts of their own needs. And in the world that I exist in, showing is just as powerful and meaningful as telling. And this is especially true for clients who don't have access to verbal speech, right? Behavior is communication. So I've needed to really learn to adapt my approach to sort of just sit back and listen and observe and receive in order to really tune into my clients, to pick up on subtle cues or communication attempts that tell me who they are, how they communicate, and what's important to them. So I start assessments usually with a caregiver interview, and I put a lot of emphasis on observing how clients and caregivers interact and caregiver input in general, because they usually have known the client for years, often their entire life in the case of parents, and they really understand the client's communication in a way that I never will be able to in my limited time working with the client. And often there's this really beautiful and unique language or sort of intuitive back and forth between caregiver and client that reveals so much about the client's communication. For example, I've had caregivers, tell me really niche moments of communication, when my daughter taps my hand, that means she needs to use the washroom. Or when they put their tongue out, that means that they're overwhelmed and they likely need a break. So listening to caregivers is really critical because they help me avoid misinterpreting behavior and ensure that I'm not overlooking meaningful communication from clients. Um, in one case, a client that I worked with recently, I had a mother during the interview tell me that her son used pictures to communicate and that he would actually point to pictures at home to request things. And this is really important information because it helps me know, if the clients can understand the cause and effect of using pictures to communicate. And then I can think about introducing a picture-based communication system. And that can act as a huge support in terms of environmental and community access because it provides a method of communication to the client that is a bit more easily interpreted by other people and especially less familiar communication partners. And it can also help provide more autonomy and independence to the client. So I tried to assess this directly with the client, exploring what symbols or pictures he used and understood, how he engaged and interacted with them. I tried it in clinic with, my photos. I tried it at home with the pictures mom told me he uses at home. But I couldn't really recreate that communication with him in any sort of structure assessment that I tried. And as a side note, I learned from mom that this client had a history of trauma and abuse that made it really hard for him to feel safe with pretty much anyone but his mom. And I think that was a big contributing factor to why a structured assessment didn't really accurately reflect how this client communicates and what his strengths are. So following mom's input, we moved forward with creating a low-tech picture-based communication book for the client, and I included a ton of vocabulary that, is relevant to the client's day-to-day, things that he likes and is interested in. And I coached Mom on how to use it with him, and she kind of took the lead introducing it with him. And in our last session, when I was kind of wrapping up with Mom, the client actually got up and he walked over and he placed his hand on his mom's shoulder and brought the communication book with him. And he pointed to a picture of Lightning McQueen. And we included that because he has a Lightning McQueen toy that he really likes. And he really likes the movie Cars. And then he walked back to the TV and looked at the TV, and we both like completely lit up because we knew that he was clearly asking to watch Cars, and he can clearly use photos to communicate, no problem. And if I'd relied only on standardized tools and ignored the caregiver's insights, then we would have missed that moment and a whole avenue of communication and autonomy for him. And just like caregivers offer insight, so do the clients themselves. So, as part of the assessment and my work with clients, I really prioritize observing clients in multiple contexts. So, I'll see them in new environments at the clinic, but also in everyday environments at home, in school, when they're involved in their daily routines, because that's where their communication is most natural. And I'll watch just how they interact, what they're drawn to, what they avoid, how they seek connection or express discomfort. And from there, I can begin to interpret those behaviors, understand them as communication, right? A glance, a movement, walking away, reaching out. These are all really valuable forms of communication for clients and all information that can help me learn to better engage with them, respond to them effectively, and also build a sense of rapport and safety for them. And as another example, I was doing an AAC assessment with a client who, every time I showed up to his house with my iPad, he would immediately run to his room. This happened like three, four times. And, there's a world in which someone could potentially interpret that as him being, hard to engage or having a limited attention span, etc. And, maybe other clinicians would see it that way. I would hope not. But I think to most SLPs, that's super clear communication, right? He's telling me that I don't want to do whatever you're here to do with me. And honestly, that's fair enough because he doesn't know me. I'm a strange person entering his home and asking him to do really random things. So then I just continue the assessment and I make sure I observe him in different contexts. And I observe him at school, where he has access to an AAC device, actually, that he's working on with the SLP and the school board. And that helps me kind of learn that at school, when the iPad comes out, it means it's time to do work. So the client already had this association with the iPad and the communication app that we're using. And now I'm starting my assessment with him and I'm showing up at his house at 4:30 when he's already had a long day at school and he's tired and I'm making him do the same work. So of course he's setting a boundary for himself, right? He's communicating in a way that he has access to. So following the client's lead, I'll interpret his message for him to show him that I understand, right? I'll say it in the way he would if he could. I'll model it all on the iPad for him. You're tired. No therapy today. Stop. I need a break, etc. And then I'll try to find out what he is motivated to talk about to make our time more functional and personally relevant. And this is kind of where trial and error and sometimes a bit of intuition comes into play. And for this client in particular, I tried so many things. I knew he really liked Thomas the Tank Engine, so I found apps and games to play on his iPad or, my iPad. I tried embedding YouTube videos of his favorite songs in his communication app so he could at least navigate to them and get some practice searching for vocabulary. And I was really struggling to find something that engaged this client and create a space where he's actually motivated and wants to communicate. And I think in this case, I was honestly doing too much. Um, and when I took a step back and just observed him and followed his lead and didn't concern myself with filling the time we had together, I started to notice things differently. And through our time together, sometimes, when we were working beside each other, he would actually grab my hand and place it on his head. And I had no idea what this meant until I saw him doing the same thing with Dad, and Dad would start rubbing his head for him. And then I got to see, here's another form of really clear, intentional communication, right? It's a request for a head rub. So I programmed head rub into his device and modeled requesting it with him. And now I have this buy-in from the client because he can start the session off by requesting a head rub. And then I can continue to support him by expanding on his request and offering him access to even more communication. So we can talk about feelings, right? When you get a head rub, how do you feel? I feel calm. I feel happy. Expressing preferences. I like head rubs. I like Thomas the Tank Engine. I love Dad. We can start offering and modeling choices like head rub or game, head rub or song, head rub or foot rub. Sometimes the client would actually put his legs on top of my lap when we were working together, which I think is good. I took that as a sign that he actually, became comfortable with me. But I kind of will let Dad do the foot rubs in session. We're also allowed to have boundaries as clinicians. But essentially, by observing and finding one motivator for the client, we can open up a whole world for them where they now can be supported and understood for so many more reasons than just a refusal or a request or an action. He can begin to learn to share feelings and express affection, make a choice to express agency or independence. So at its core, most of my work is really simply about learning how to listen and observe. And I think access in this context isn't just a device or a strategy that we're implementing. It's really about creating a shared space or place, if you will. And it's a shared space that I build collaboratively with clients and caregivers by slowing down enough, tuning in, and letting the client lead. And when we do that, we really start to support conditions where the client feels safe, where communication can not only happen, but can be understood. And being able to help offer that moment to clients where we can connect on this plane of, hey, I see you, I understood you, and they get that sense of being heard, the idea that their behavior has meaning to us. I think that's really the first step in exploring access. And I think where communication autonomy really begins and can grow for these clients. So, yeah, that's in a nutshell what I do. But I was saying very hard to kind of put what I do into a 15-minute chat because there's a lot.
Thank you so much, Laura. I am feeling such a loud virtual applause as you finish your chat. That was such an expansive talk, and I feel from witnessing it, your focus on communication and listening and thinking about those things um, beyond our conventional notions is so powerful, and I would love to just hear more and more and more from you on your work. Um, so thank you so much for that. I'm going to invite Finnegan back to the virtual stage. Um, so we can move into our Q&A for the night. So once again, thank you so much, Lauren Finnegan. That was so wonderful to hear from both of you. And again, to everyone who's joined us tonight, if you have any questions for both, for either, please feel free to drop those into the chat. But to start off our discussion, I would love to hear any reflections from either of you on each other's practices that you had, whether it be leading up to tonight or after hearing each other share. And maybe Finnegan could start to give Laura a little breathing break.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that was coming up for me as you were talking was like, yeah, this idea of translation. And it's come up for me in some of the work that I've done around image description and sensory translation in that way. But I think so much of that work is like, yeah, is this idea that we're like in each of our body minds, we're like having this experience of the world, and actually like there's a lot of complexity in relating those experiences to other people, even in situations that I think are considered like direct channels of communication or more normative channels of communication. And yeah, I think that was coming up for me a little bit in terms of like this idea of listening, of like, yeah, people, like so many people are communicating in so many different ways. It's just like not necessarily being attuned to or like their internal world and intuition around communication, like you were saying, doesn't match like a more unfamiliar interlocutor who like, yeah, might have less experience like bridging that. So that was just one of the things that I was thinking about.
I think for me, a huge thing that came up is just being able, first of all, to hear from someone with living experience, because I think that's incredibly important. Um, and I really thought it was very powerful how you had work that kind of juxtaposed this really like almost alienating or dismissive or robotic language around labels, pain medication, and then kind of comparing it and contrasting to like these little very like personal brief moments, like seeing the reflection of a camera in a guide dog's eyes or a Josie and the Pussycats mention. It really kind of brings it back to this idea of the person and centering them as an individual. And I think that was really beautiful.
I couldn't agree more with both of your reflections, and they also both had me thinking about the way like where technology intersects with both of your work. And I'm curious about what that process has been like maybe Finnegan hearing a little bit more on I mean, either the automated response or the alt text selfies, just and integrating like tech into your creative process, what that's been like.
Yeah, I was just talking to someone about this earlier. I mean, I think it's so, yeah. I mean, I definitely am someone who feels like um very like alienated by kind of like a techno solutionism type mindset, or like this idea that technology is going to like solve a problem. Like I think we can see pretty clearly that with all the tools and technology we have right now, that we have a lot of needs that aren't being met. Um, yeah, I think for me, some of that work just comes out of my own kind of like daily life. And like, my interest in alt tech started because I'm an artist who has like a portfolio website and posts on Instagram, and I have blind friends and colleagues and strangers who I want to be able to engage with my work if they want to. And I had a lot of questions around what it means to translate visual information into text. Um, and I think similarly with the autoresponders, like I just started noticing, as I was emailing different people, I would sometimes get these auto replies. And yeah, I just started saving them in a folder because I was like, this is such a beautiful, yeah, such beautiful language. And yeah, like I felt like disabled people were like specifically using that tool in a way that's like a little bit different than like the classic out of office that's like, I'll be back in 2 weeks. Talk to you then. Um, and um, yeah, I just felt like kind of excited about like spending time in that zone. And also starting to notice like some of the kind of like different things that kind of like emerge from the chorus of like, oh, like a lot of times there's a greeting, a lot of times there's a statement of what's happening, a lot of times there's a statement of alternative modes of communication, or like, and kind of like, yeah, kind of reorganizing them into these different yeah, kind of choruses. Um, but yeah, so I think for me, like those projects just kind of come out of like the way that technology exists in my daily life, and um, noticing like where disability culture or cultures might kind of inhabit some of those spaces.
That makes so much sense. And I really feel those pieces do such a great job of lighting that up and like adding the poetry to it. And yeah, that chorus you were talking about of those automated replies, when I first saw that piece of yours, I felt like so seen in that. Like I've had so many that I've like written down in notes of automated responses. And I was like, this is a beautiful collage of putting this together of like this collective voice. And then along the same lines, Laura, I guess I'm curious. You were so like beautifully outlined how these technologies come to play with your clients while you're working with them, and I'm wondering like what technologies maybe like are feeling the most exciting, or you're feeling the most impact, or they feel like they truly are opening up access with the work you're doing.
I love that question. I think we are kind of in an exciting time in terms of clinical technology because it's kind of catching up to what we're actually doing in clinic with clients. Um, I I would say so we have these programs that, they have picture-based communication, and maybe 10 years ago there was really only one, and you couldn't really customize it. And it would have pictures, 2D image line drawings of stick figures, performing actions or verbs to symbolize, go, stop, whatever. And you couldn't change the skin tone of the images, and you only got one voice that was a very robotic voice. And now technology and the organizations that create these apps are kind of catching up, where there's the opportunity to convey identity a little bit more in the communication system. Most of them are like fully customizable. So we can add any image or word that is relevant and meaningful to the clients. We can actually add photos in. So if they want photos of their family members to represent, the people that they want to talk about, we can change the voice on the system itself. So it can actually align with the identity or the demographic of the client that we're working with. There's even like opportunity to have silly voices. So one of the automated voices, his name is Will, and he's an adult American male, and he has a bunch of different iterations of his voice. He's got sad Will, happy Will. Will from afar, Will bad guy, Will little creature. So we can kind of work with the client and figure out what they want, and that gives them the opportunity to convey emotion in the device, humor in the device if they want Will bad guy, right? Um, so yeah, I think that is a very small little summary of where I'm excited, where the technology is going. Yeah.
You need
Those
Lightning
personal.
Queen.
Yeah, yeah, you need Lightning McQueen.
That's actually so true. I would love to get that. I'll call Owen Wilson up and maybe maybe offer that to him.
Those like personalized touches feel like yes, that's how we should be using technology, as to circle to, yeah, so many of its limitations. That feels so nice to hear of one realm in which there are some um personal impactful developments. um and as you both were speaking, I was kind of thinking, I was also thinking about, with Finnegan, with what you were saying too. Um, I'm thinking about like words in your practice, because for those of you who are not as familiar, in our audience, with Finnegan's work, a lot of it's visual, most of it's visual, but a lot of the time text is appearing with it. And I'm so curious about your process about, um, where words come in along that creative process, and yeah, your kind of relation to poetry, maybe more to speak to.
Yeah, I mean, I started working. I used to make like abstract geometric drawings, and this was like probably over 15 years ago now. And I felt like they were coming from a really personal and emotional space, but that was not always coming through to someone who was experiencing the work. Like there was this way that I was kind of like hiding behind the abstraction. Um, and so I felt like I turned to text as this way of like just totally like kind of like flipping my practice upside down. Where I was like, oh, this is a way that yeah, can like try to say what I mean. And I think it's sometimes using text, um, it can have this like almost opposite problem where it's like it can sometimes be hard to hold nuance in really short, pithy pieces of text, or like complexity. Um, but yeah, I'm not someone who considers myself a writer. I feel like I've often had a kind of like fraught relationship to writing, like just the tangle that is in my brain, like getting that into text feels hard. Um, but and yeah, and I feel like oftentimes the writing in my work kind of like comes in spurts, or like I think that's actually been something that's, well, I'll say I went to a writing workshop by the artist Camila Janan Rashid a few years ago, and it was like really thinking about writing in play. And I just was like, oh my gosh, like so much of the writing that I do in my life is like kind of coerced. It's like writing an artist statement or an application or an email, and like she had us do this thing where it was like we opened up a random Wikipedia page and we placed our hand on the screen, and then we made a poem from the 5 words that our fingers touched. And I felt like that just really like loosened something up for me, and I think also got me really excited about found text and like using text that exists, and thinking about my role as kind of like arranging it or gathering it, which is actually something I think about a lot in other areas of my practice, of like sometimes my role is like creating a situation or a setup that actually like other work or people need to inhabit.
I love that. Wow. And also like so I'm so thrilled by that initial comment of like that you just wanted to turn your practice upside down. That's such an exciting origin of incorporating the text and to speak to like your yeah, found text, like the collaging of it really is so impactful. The way like Laura was pointing out to, like the juxtapositions that you're able to like get to through doing that. Um, and then what I'm also thinking about in that gathering too, well, while you were talking, Laura, I was thinking so much about while you were giving us those really insightful case examples about like the creativity that's involved in your work. And I was wondering kind of like how that feels, or like what sort of creative muscles of yours you find yourself leaning on when you're working with your clients.
Um, that's a good question, and I think that's something I'm always figuring out and developing, to be honest. Um, I think a lot of it is uh, actually just like having a community and being able to
Mm,
exchange stories with colleagues and understanding things that they've tried before, and incorporating them into my time with clients. Um, I don't even honestly really know sometimes where I draw creatively from. I think it's like I said, like I don't know how to explain it, but I do think that there is a level of intuition involved,
mm,
where I'm kind of picking up on, feedback from the client, knowing something's not working, and trying something else. And then being creative with kind of strategies and tools that, are pretty like well known in the practice. So things like communication books, um,
mm,
are something that clients would use really often. But then we can kind of be a bit more creative in the environments that we introduce them to the client with. We can be creative about, what vocabulary we use, what is interesting and motivating to the client.
mm,
Um, and kind of just exhausting resources, I think. Like I have one
mm,
client that I'm working with now, and she's pretty complex medically, and it's really easy for me to come and talk about all these like success stories, but often that's not what it looks like working with clients. And
mm,
her communication, like very simply put, is more reflexive in nature. So it's kind of her having a body response and her caregivers trying to interpret it and figure it out. But one thing, that I've noticed with her is she loves music. I saw her in the day
mm,
program and she really likes Dancing Queen and ABBA. So I'm kind of like, okay, that's, if we don't have intentional communication from her, maybe we can build something around, just a like or a preference that she's showing. She's smiling and laughing. So right now we're working, I'm exhausting my resources by reaching out to vendors for more low-tech communication devices. And we've actually found like a little switch that lights up, and this client has a cortical visual impairment. So that means that there, it's her eyes are, totally good, but somewhere along the pathway from her eyes receiving an image and sending it to her brain, something gets a little bit lost. And so it's really hard for her to visually see any sort of like communication book or picture. So we're working
mm,
with a button that lights up because, she because was reacting to a light wand that she had at home that I tried with her.
mm,
And we're
mm,
literally just getting her to press the button and it plays a song. And maybe it's not communicating something intentionally, but it's some sort of response, some sort of agency from her. And I think, I don't know if that really answers your question, but I think it's an idea of a creative solution.
mm.
It really just comes from, yeah, exhausting resources and just experimenting.
I think that answers the question beyond. um, not that any answer wouldn't do that, but I love thinking about in that answer just like how deeply interdisciplinary this approach is that you have. And then of course, like Finnegan, I'm just thinking about all the different forms you're playing with too, and how you're mixing so many disciplines. And I this is less of a question, but maybe just kind of more of a jumping off point for each of you as like a closing thought or reflection, but like what is or any thoughts around like the interdisciplinary nature of your work and like what is feeling exciting right now about that.
You want to go first, or do you want me to?
Up to you.
I need a little second to think, so why don't you go first if you
No
go?
worries, no worries. I think it's just that, we've kind of caught up to a time where we understand the importance of interdisciplinary work in the field, and that, especially for the population I work with, we need to understand, access needs in all ways, right? Especially for a communication assessment. We need to understand, are there any visual difficulties the client has? Having an audiologist to assess their hearing, right? Because that's a huge part of communication. Having an occupational therapist to look at sensory needs so we can ensure that their sensory needs are being met. I think it's just an exciting time because, organizations are really trying to employ clinicians with a wealth of knowledge and who are working in different backgrounds, and kind of each person comes with their own experience and their own field or expertise, and we can kind of like piece together the puzzle together to figure out the best, most, all-consuming support for the client.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like working across different disciplines or mediums or strategies, I think is part of how like I kind of just like keep things fun for me in my work life. And I think yeah, it's fun to try something new or and I think also goes back to that thing of like I'm really interested in artists who are working with the kind of like materials of everyday life and their specific everyday life. And so, there's so many different ways that we're living. And so kind of, yeah, tapping into those. And yeah, so I think that's part of it for me is just like, yeah, this kind of like noticing or attunement and then being like, oh, what can I play with in that realm?
Oh, I love hearing from both of you so much, and I really, really could endlessly. And I just want to thank you both so, so, so much for coming tonight and sharing more about your work and giving us a brief but very meaningful window into your practices. I'm so inspired, excited by the both of you. And thank you everyone for coming tonight to Cross-Pollinations. We feel so lucky to have such a big group in the room and such a lovely audience. Next month's offerings info is coming out soon. But for now, thanks for joining us. This was Cross-Pollinations with Laura Davidson and Finnegan Shannon. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye.